Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to discuss a fundamental but often overlooked is setting boundaries and people pleasing. If you struggle saying no, if you're constantly feeling overwhelmed by the demands of others, I truly hope that this video can help you better understand what boundaries are, how to set them, and finally stop people pleasing. So let's get into it. So first things first, to be able to set boundaries, we really need to understand what boundaries are. Boundaries are guidelines that we set for ourselves on how we want other people to treat us, respect us. So what is okay versus what isn't okay. We establish these limits for our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Boundaries can be anything from time and energy to personal relationships. But why are they so important? Which brings me to my next step. Setting boundaries are so important because it helps us build healthy relationships. It helps us build self-esteem, self-respect for ourselves. It also is big on reducing stress and anxiety. You see, when you don't set boundaries, you can become very quickly resentful, overwhelmed, and burnt out. Boundaries help us express what we want, what we need, and what we value. Now the big one is, how do we set boundaries? And this, I'll be the first to admit, this part is the most challenging. Why? Because you're most likely used to always putting others in front of your own needs. And if this sounds anything like you, it's time to set boundaries and limits now. So number one, identify your boundaries, what you need, what you want. For example, how do you feel safe? What do you want to preserve? Is it your energy, your time? Step number two, communicate your boundaries. Now I'm just going to say this right away. When you communicate your boundaries to people who are not so much familiar on you setting boundaries, they may kind of get upset. But at the end of the day, you can't feel guilty. That is not your problem. It's their problem to figure out. So always remember that. But the more you set boundaries on others, they will get used to it, and it's going to become easier and easier every time. If you are dealing with people who are not used to you setting boundaries, on how I suggest to communicate your boundaries, for example, use I as a statement or such I need, rather than saying you don't do this, you don't do that, because then it creates a blaming or accusation language. Step number three, enforce your boundaries. As soon as you feel your boundaries are being disrespected or violated, express it calmly but very assertively. It's reminding them that they're crossing the edge, not sticking to you, and stick to your limit. In addition to setting boundaries, you really need to stop people pleasing. You really need to start saying no and stop saying yes. You really need to start practicing saying no. I know myself, I have a hard time saying no. I always, rather than just saying no, sorry, I can't, I always find some sort of excuse to avoid saying no, but not saying yes, which is not good. So I myself, and I'm sure you do, need to really start saying no assertively, calmly, respectively, of course. But just saying, no, thank you, I can't. No, thank you, I have prior engagements. Prioritize yourself. It's completely okay to prioritize yourself, to put yourself first. At the end of the day, you have to take care of what's most important, and it's you. All right, that is my rant for today. I know setting boundaries and stop people pleasing can be very difficult and challenging, but I promise you, as you practice it, as you implement it continuously and stick to it in your life, it will get absolutely easier. People will start respecting you more, believe it or not.